I'm excited to sit down with Andi Doane, Executive Director of Arlington Eats, Jack Nagel, Executive Director of the Arlington Housing Authority, and Professor Kelsiana Hollis-Hansen from Tufts University's Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. Working together, they're bringing fresh, healthy food right to the doorstep of Drake Village's 150 households, blending trusted nutrition science and deep community partnership with so much heart and care. Their collaboration is a hopeful model for how we can build a healthier, more connected future together. Join us for a truly inspiring conversation about hope, innovation, and the simple power of meeting our neighbors and their needs with kindness and respect. And with that introduction, I am joined by my guests here in the food pantry or the mini mart at Drake Village. On my far left is Jack Nagel, a familiar face to ACMi audiences, the head of our Arlington Housing Authority. And next to him, Andi Doane, also familiar to Arlington, our ACMi watchers. From the many references to the work that she does. If we don't get Andi on camera often enough, we certainly know of her work. She is the executive director. Is that the right title? Right?
Correct, yes.
Executive director of of Arlington Eats. And next to me, Kelsiana Hollis-Hansen, right?
That's right.
Kelsiana Hollis-Hansen, who is professor of public policy and nutrition. Did I get that right?
It's nutrition.
You correct me. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm assistant professor in nutrition. Yeah.
All right, assistant professor in nutrition from Tufts. All here to talk about the latest innovative program introduced to Arlington as a pilot here, though we will hear more from Kelsiana about how this is a program that she and others have been working at food pantries throughout the country. So let me start by just taking you back, Andi, please, to Town Day 2025 and to the germination of this idea. Tell us what happened.
Yes, we all really love Town Day, and this particular one will stick in my memory for a long time. So Jack and I happened to both be at Town Day. We were just catching up, and we were talking about what's going on in our organizations, what our needs are. And I mentioned to him that Arlington Eats has grown so much in the last 3 or 4 years that we really needed more storage for food. So he said, let me think about that and see if there's something in our properties that we could help you with. And so a few weeks later, he emails me and says, well, we have this space at Drake Village. Perhaps you could use that as food storage. And then our staffs connected. We were talking about it, and we realized that we could store food here, but what if we give out food here? So that's really how this whole concept started, realizing that where Arlington Eats is in East Arlington, Drake Village is the furthest away of any of the Arlington Housing Authority properties from Arlington Eats. And it's also one of the largest. So there's a large population here where having access to food regularly, just doorsteps away, would be really helpful. So that's how this whole concept started. And basically from September, we opened at the end of April. So it really got going really quickly, which has been amazing.
Yeah, and which was a great idea, obviously, in and of itself, but took on a whole other dimension when the next serendipitous meeting happened, and that between you and Kelsiana. So just carry forward with the narrative, please, Andi.
Sure. So again, probably about the same time, it was last fall, Kelsiana and I are part of Project Bread's Making Hunger History Coalition. And so we happened to be on a Zoom call together, and we just happened to get put into a breakout session together. And so Kelsiana was telling me about the work she does at Tufts. I was saying, she's actually worked with food pantries. Is there a way to bring her expertise and experience into Arlington Eats? So I sent her a little chat in the middle of the breakout group saying, can we exchange information and meet later? And so we had a conversation, and one of the values at Arlington Eats is really to provide access to food, but nutritious foods. But we've never been able to quantify that. We think we do a great job of providing fresh produce, very culturally appropriate foods, as well as diet-specific foods. But to have maybe more information on that would be really helpful. And so that started the conversation with Kelsiana. And she came and looked at our market on Broadway, and she said, well, you guys are already doing a great job. Is there something else we can do? And we're like, we have this new program starting. And so it's gone from there. And again, we have this wonderful nutrition component to the mini market here at Drake village.
Which I want to follow up on right away, and just mentioning though that it is exactly this kind of symbiosis that you guys have begun to explain to us that is so attractive, so compelling about these kinds of initiatives for this series that we're doing. As you guys know, we're looking at Arlington as a learning town, as a place of lifelong learning, and that encompasses a whole lot of different kinds of learning experiences. What you've just begun to describe, this idea that you could not just continue to provide the basic needs and services that you do, but to expand that to include other benefits and other ways in which learning can happen. And so with that, I'd like to kind of throw it over to you, Kelsiana, just to describe, first of all, like, I know this is a first for Arlington and a first for Arlington Eats and the Housing Authority, not a first for you because you're doing this kind of work around the country. Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, well, and some aspects of this are a first, right? So having a mini mart inside of a senior housing authority building is really novel, and we've never intervened in a mini mart or a food pantry in that setting. So that part of it is new, I think, for all of us, and especially exciting. But we have done a lot of and we and other researchers have done a lot of work trying to understand more about what nutrition programs people receiving food assistance actually want to see. So there are some great measures or surveys that are already created, and kind of at the very outset of this program, we had some ideas about what people tend to prefer from our work and other researchers' work, like meal kits, which are similar to meal kits you might get in a commercial store as well, but it's foods kind of bundled together with a recipe that instructs people how to make them. And we do tailor those meal kits in our case to what's called the DASH diet, which is a very approachable, more of like a healthy eating pattern, not strict in the same way that some diets are. So when I use that term, I use it loosely. But so we knew, like something like that might be desirable here. We know that people love sampling food. We all do. I love going to the grocery store and getting food samples. So we had a sense that might be something desirable and something we've seen people like in cooking demonstrations. So we kind of provided this survey to Andi and her team at the very outset of starting this market, as well as questions on things like cuisine preferences, and you mentioned like cultural tailoring, and food items even, like what are your favorite foods or meals that you like to eat. And they collected that data and then shared it with us, and that kind of set the foundation for the type of programs we wanted to provide here. And I came, and another member of the EATS team came to one of the existing kind of events that that the AHA organization was having here, and kind of just talked to community members and said, like, this is what we're thinking. What would you like to see? And we got a lot of great feedback. So not everything is, I guess there are some of the shelf talkers here too, but basically these are kind of like little pieces of nutrition and health information that we put out as well. And so this is just an example of like feedback that we got. So we were thinking about things like hypertension and diabetes as some of the most common things, but some of the residents actually raised their hand and said, can you have also like kidney and renal supportive information? So, that's related to diabetes, but also slightly different. So that's how even just engaging in those listening sessions, we thought about and conceptualized providing these programs here. And so now weekly, the market is open, and we have two, I don't know if I should go into this yet, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, but we have two master's students from the Tufts Friedman School Nutrition Program who come and work in the market every Thursday and Friday when it's open, and they collate those meal kits that we were talking about. And we kind of iteratively refine those as well. So community members tell us by what they pick, what meal kits they like the most, as well as verbally provide feedback to us. And we try to then, continually improve upon those every week and try to encourage more people to take them. We change out the shelf talkers, and then we do regular cooking demonstrations. So, again, that's kind of, there's a a growing evidence base around that we and other researchers have been doing around the country, and now we're kind of taking those learnings as well as the unique Arlington community perspective and unique Drake Village community member perspective to refine that program here.
Thank you so much for that. That was great. And that unique Drake Village perspective allows me a perfect segue to move over to Jack, because I wanted to ask you, Jack, what is it about Drake Village? Andi mentioned already that geographically it made sense to have something on opposite sides of Arlington. But what else about Drake Village really works in this way?
Yeah, and I think Andi mentioned the size of the development. It's our largest senior development due to it not only including the Hauser building, which we're in right now, but also the cottages. So 216 units. Close to anywhere between 220 and 250 people live here. It's in an isolated part of town compared to some of the other locations that we have, where we're right on the Lexington line. We're not as close to some of the other resources in Arlington. But Drake Village is unique in a lot of ways because of its isolation. It's been able to get a lot of resources throughout the years. We have a great relationship with Minuteman Senior Services, where they have resources on site. So really, this is like a building upon some other services that we already have here to try to help a population that needs maybe some additional help in different areas to help support aging in place and some of the other different types of things that we as a housing authority want to support. But some of the other great things, just amenities-wise, of Drake Village is that it's located adjacent to the bikeway, which is great. It's adjacent to the reservoir and the pathway that goes throughout there, and it's adjacent to a supermarket, Trader Joe's, as well as a pharmacy, and has MBTA access at the top of the road. So when we talk about Drake Village to the state or other stakeholders, we say, Drake Village has it all. It has everything that you would want in a senior development. It's got the scenic beauty, but also close access to all the different areas it needs close access to. And really, in recent years, our goal has been to build upon that and make sure it has all the resources that we can give all the resources that we can to residents. And really, the housing authority can't do that, but our partners in the community can help us with that. And that's where these collaborative opportunities have really turned into such a great thing for our residents and for the authority in general.
Yeah, and something that has been a staple of conversations I've had with Arlington Eats folks and with you, Jack, and others from AHA over time is the way that you treat the folks who you deal with, whether you want to call them clients, residents, anything else that you might choose. It is always respecting and reinforcing dignity. So, Andi, if I can ask you, how does this project fit into to that overall kind of how you treat the folks who walk into Arlington Eats?
Yeah. So our guests, when they come in, we want them to feel like they're shopping almost at a small grocery store,
Guests,
not a
that's the
food
word.
pantry.
Sorry,
Yes, we use
the
guests.
Guests I was looking for.
Over the years, food pantries have evolved from being emergency assistance to staples in families' lives because of the cost of living and things like that. And so, we all have this thought of a food pantry of being given a box of food or a bag of food. It's mostly processed, canned goods. But in all of our programs, what we try to do is not just offer those and let people choose what they want, right? We all have different needs, different diets, different things we like. So let people choose what they want. And then also offer things that are maybe more expensive at the grocery store. In fact, I just had a story come from last week. We were open here at the mini market, and there was a woman that came in. She's never been to Arlington Eats on the other side of town, but she started coming to the mini market, and she was just so amazed at what we offered. And she's like, I would never buy fresh produce at the grocery store because it costs too much. But now she can come here and she can get a wide variety of fresh produce, which we all know is what a great healthy opportunity of food to have. So, having choice, having variety, access to fresh foods is part of the dignity that we want to offer.
And one of the things that I particularly wanted to explore here is the fact that we have two, and I don't say this lightly, and I also don't say it to make you guys uncomfortable, but two giants of the local scene here in terms of just the impact that you have on Arlington's population, both of your organizations, and then that combined or joined to one of the top nutrition schools in the world, I would say, and a program that you have been doing in a number of other places. It's just such a wonderful, as I mentioned already, symbiosis where each one of you is getting something from it, or your populations are, but also giving something back. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that cycle of both intergenerational. So part of this lifelong learning idea that we have is programs that allow for the intersection of different generations in a natural way. And Kelsiana, you were mentioning that there's a couple of, you have students who are doing research here. Can you talk at all, I know it's still early days with the whole program, et cetera, but can you talk at all about like the effect of being, doing this research face to face in a sense with the population that's being served for your students, for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, in the traditional nutrition program, you may or may not get the opportunity to provide community nutrition services. So from that perspective, it gives them this kind of real world opportunity to interact with all different types of people. And I mean that in like the widest definition of that in terms of variety, and getting to work with older adults as well. And, I was sharing with you earlier, even for myself, I've, been here multiple times now and, have had the opportunity to talk to a gentleman who's the most incredible puzzle maker I've ever seen in my life, and have him share about his experience as an architect and just different things that had happened in his life. So I think that opportunity, doesn't always happen organically in the way our society is set up now. So it's incredible for our students to get that like real world experience of working with people out in the community and identifying like, how do I build and provide nutrition kind of recommendations to people and meet them where they're at, and then also like what can they learn from and what can they then share back with them too, that like fits and finds this excitement around food and shared experience.
And Jack, nobody knows your population here at Drake Village and in the other AHA facilities better than you do. Talk to us a little bit about like what you can see as the benefits beyond the food here for the residents.
Well, I think first and foremost, with some of these different types of things that we're trying to bring to our residents here, is it showcases good faith from the Housing Authority. Because in many cases, landlords and tenants, the relationship isn't always a positive one. And I think that carries over whether or not we are trying to be the best landlord we can. I think there's always there's just naturally going to be that kind of a divisiveness,
kind of
that tension.
Yeah.
So, and from my perspective as like a steward of this great public resource, my goal is to showcase to them that we're here for them. And by doing some of these different programs, one, we're providing them a great resource, but two, we're also showing good faith that we are, trying to be a resource provider versus just a landlord that's arbitrarily enforcing different rules and, all the negative things that go with that process. Mm-hmm. So, that's really what our commitment is showcasing that effort, but then it also has rippling effects. It's going to help our residents age in place in a better rate. It's going to help them, work with some of the other different service providers because it's going to connect them through, whether it's through Kelsiana, whether it's through Andi and her team, and whether it's through a multitude of other different agencies that come in and out of Drake Village and our other properties. So, that's what the goal is, and I think as we build these different programs, that's what we're doing. But I think even talking back, it's, I think our relationship with Arlington Eats goes way back, even before it was called Arlington Eats, obviously. Yeah. And I think in recent years, that relationship has evolved even more, whether it was with the pandemic, when they were delivering food to our residents who were very in need and very susceptible to some of the different issues that were related to isolationism and things like that, and ensuring that they got proper nutrition. But that's grown. Even before this food pantry, Arlington Eats was able to put a cabinet in each one of our developments as an additional measure to try to ensure that our residents had access to food. So that was like almost phase one, is trying to get some additional access, because we saw that maybe all of our residents, not enough of our residents were making it over to Broadway, especially here at Drake Village, which is why it was the focus. and that's kind of how we got to where we are right now. But that's, you know, I think I went off topic a little bit.
No, not at all. No, that was, again,
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah.
all of you, not only for the work that you do,
Yeah.
but for the fact that actually this conversation is rolling along very, very well because your answers are so good. Andi, I remember that you said at the initial impetus for this was this conversation you had with Jack at Town Day, and it had to do with the fact that you needed to find another place to store your food. Just tell us a little bit about where things are at in terms of that for Arlington Eats. Is this currently, are you going to be like, this will do for a while, or are you actually looking to possibly expand this kind of program into other places in Arlington? What's the vision?
Yeah, well, when Jack and I worked on this project, we said, let's do it for a year and see how it goes. I mean, we always want to be learning, understanding what are the things that go well, what are the things we can improve. So we're really treating this as a pilot, but we're only 2 months into this and it's been going so well. So I think I can put confidence say we'll continue doing this mini market at Drake Village. And then, we'll evaluate, does it make sense to put something like this, maybe it's a different scale, at some of the other buildings, depending on capacity and things like that. So I think there are opportunities for us to learn and to grow, and then continue our partnership over the years to come.
I invite anybody who wants to add, you don't have to wait for me to ask a question if you have anything to say. Yeah. But I'm happy to ask the next question otherwise.
No, I agree with Andi. I think, the goal was to see how it went for a year, but we've gotten so much positive feedback, even as a housing authority, that, we're very grateful. And I think our initial goal for showing good faith has been accomplished in a lot of ways. In addition to all the different other measures that we've been trying to do. And even, talking a little bit off track, initially when our board a few years back formed a nonprofit with the idea being to try to bring some additional measures to our properties to improve access to healthcare, or other different things that could help them understand what they need to do from a health perspective, et cetera. And so that they formed this nonprofit called the Arlington Housing Authority Charitable Foundation. We've been slow moving a little bit, trying to get where we need to go, with the ultimate goal being a much larger operation there. But this was really a great opportunity even in that, because Kelsiana is able to provide a lot of what we were hoping to accomplish through that, and our board was able to, the Housing Authority Board and the Charitable Foundation Board, which are one and the same, were able to support it as well. So.
I want to, I think we've gotten a really good sense of how well this alliance is working. Again, as you both mentioned, only 2 months in, and you're both like, whoa, this is better than we thought, and it's going to, possibly help you to expand your ambitions, et cetera, which is great. But I did want to just finish up with a little bit of kind of asking you more from a more personal perspective, each of you. What is it about this work that is so compelling for you? And in finding these kinds of partnerships, what is it about that, again, that really feeds the fire for you guys? And any of you just jump in.
I think, when I first got involved in government, especially when I was getting my master's in public administration, one of the things that constantly got brought up is silos everywhere. And I think a major goal of mine has been try to circumnavigate those silos to connect different agencies that really should be working together when we can make it happen. And what's easy is that other agencies are trying to do the same thing. So a lot of times it's a very, a very natural relationship when it happens. But another thing, personally, is, I started my career in, public service in Massachusetts at the DTA with the Department of Transitional Assistance, which provides SNAP benefits as well as cash assistance. So I was a SNAP caseworker for a couple of years, and I worked in the central office doing some additional work related to SNAP and cash assistance. But food insecurity has always been something that's important to me, with my roots at the DTA. So when opportunities like this came with Andi to try to figure out ways in which we could provide additional food-related resources to our residents, it seemed like a no-brainer and a great opportunity. But yeah, so I'm very pleased with this, and I think that's what my goal is overall, is just trying to find ways in which we can work with other local stakeholders to provide additional resources to our residents.
I think for me, what keeps me going is obviously the people, and it's the community, whether it's the community that forms between us as leaders in the organizations, as partners, whether it's volunteers who are coming to serve, whether it's the guests who come, and the community and the relationships that form around those things. So I think that's where our strength comes from, right? In our relationships and the community that we can build together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, it's both professional and personal. From a professional perspective, I've done nutrition security and nutrition intervention development for the last 15 years of my career. But one of the reasons, or the main reason, that I'm so passionate about that is personal lived experience with food insecurity. In my early childhood, and just challenges around my family getting access to food. And actually, to this day, I'm from Buffalo, New York, but one of the reasons this project in particular is so important to me, and I'm so committed to the community and the housing authority, is because my dad actually still lives in a public housing building in the outskirts of Buffalo. And it is a senior, it's a home for people with disabilities as well as seniors. So I think about that, when I was growing up, half the time I lived in a housing authority building. And so when I go home for Christmas, for example, I'm visiting a housing authority building, right? So I care deeply, and just think about what an incredible opportunity it would have been for me as a child, and would be today for my dad if he had access to something like this, right, physically on the property, right? So I just truly, from every perspective, professionally to personal, think this is an amazing initiative, and I'm committed to it, and making sure that we're meeting the residents' needs here, and then hopefully we have the opportunity to carry that forward elsewhere as well.
All right, well, thank you very much to you and all three of you for sharing that, those personal perspectives, as well as the professional work that you do. Three very stand-up people doing excellent, excellent work. We at ACMi really believe in this project that we are embarked upon, that Arlington is a learning town, that Arlington is a place where people, boards and agencies and organizations and nonprofits of all sorts come together and work with each other to create opportunities for people, not only to deal with very pressing issues of food insecurity and the like, but also to expand the vision of what is possible within the provision of those services, to include initiatives like this one, and the kind of, again, the ripples of learning that can happen for the people who participate in all the different ways, as you were describing with Arlington Eats, Andi. So I want to thank the three of you very much for this conversation and for the work that you do. And again, for folks, that's Jack Nagel from Arlington Housing Authority on the far end there, and then Andi Doane from Arlington Eats, and Kelsiana Hollis-Hansen. What is the problem with that? Sorry.
It's too long. It's a problem for everyone.
Get rid of that husband.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks the three of you for joining us. I am James Milan, and we will see you next time.